later. Towards the south coast, there'll be outbreaks of rain sweeping eastwards across most parts through the morning. After a brief dry spell, further heavy rain is to come. The cloud and rain will spread eastwards to all parts throughout the morning, with heavier rain arriving throughout the afternoon.
On Dan Wootton tonight, it's Mark Dolan in for the big man with my first show of 2023. In my big opinion monologue, the NHS has reached the point of no return. It's enough to make you sick. In my take at 10, my New Year's resolutions for 2023. Plus top Tory MP Andrew Bridgen on why he wants to stop the vaccine rollout. Top US doctor Ken Berry on how to have a lean and healthy new year. And we'll have a spring clean with How Clean Is Your House legend Kim Woodburn. We're live from 9. I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and tune-in apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
All of this week, and a happy new year to one and all. In my take at 10 in an hour's time, my New Year's resolutions. But I'll be kicking off in style with my big opinion monologue in just a couple of minutes, and it's a big one to start the year. Another winter, another NHS crisis. The service has reached the point of no return. It's enough to make you sick. Prince Harry says he wants to make up with William, but can sibling relationships be repaired? Have you had trouble with a brother or sister? Is blood thicker than water? We'll be asking TV legend Channel 4's Kim Woodburn, the voice of common sense on this show. Also, should the vaccine rollout be paused over safety concerns? We'll speak to top Tory MP Andrew Bridgen, who says we must think again. Plus, would you like to lose a bit of weight and get fit this year? No better man than world-renowned US doctor live from Nashville, Tennessee. Best-selling author and YouTube sensation Dr. Ken Berry live on the show. What a character. That interview might just change your life. Lots to get through, but first, someone whose body has always been a temple, Rhiannon Jones with the headlines.
Boat around 9 miles off the Kent coast. It's understood there were more than 40 people on board. It comes as UK and French authorities start patrolling beaches together for the very first time in a bid to stop migrants from making the crossing. Health bosses are calling for the government to declare a major incident within the NHS over mounting pressure on the service. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine claims as many as 500 people could be dying each week because to critical care. The government says it recognises the pressure faced by the NHS. Lisa King told GB News her husband would have survived if he'd been treated in time.
500 people a week dying in NHS hospitals because they were denied the treatment and appointments that they needed. What my husband died from was very treatable. He did not need to die. He should never have died. And for every one of those 500 a week that are dying, there is a family behind them. There is a husband, a wife, a partner, a son, a daughter.
Thousands of rail passengers will face yet more travel disruption this week. Members of the RMT and 14 train operators will stage 2 48-hour walkouts from Tuesday and Friday. Drivers from Aslev will strike on Thursday. More than 100 national highway workers in England will also stage a 48-hour strike from tomorrow. And thousands of mourners are paying their respects to Pelé at the grounds of his former club Santos. The Brazilian football legend died last Thursday. He was undergoing treatment for colon cancer. The three-time World Cup winner was 82. The procession will continue through the streets of his hometown tomorrow, followed by a private family burial. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan.
Welcome to Dan Wootton tonight. It's Mark Dolan in for the big man, and we'll be talking to TV legend Channel 4's Kim Woodburn, the voice of common sense on this show. Prince Harry says he wants to make up with William. Is blood thicker than water? We'll discuss that later on. Also, should the vaccine rollout be paused over safety concerns? We'll speak to top Tory MP Andrew Bridgen, who says we must think again. Plus, would you like to lose weight and get fit this year? No better man than world-renowned US doctor live from Nashville, Tennessee, best-selling author and YouTube sensation Dr. Ken Berry. An absolute character. That's an interview that might just change your life. Plus, we got the papers at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction with me throughout the show until 11R. Historian, broadcaster and gentleman about town, David Oldroyd-Bolt. Top political commentator, journalist and successful playwright, Emma Burnell. And TV personality and rather vivacious woman, Ingrid Tarrant. Now I want to hear from you throughout the show. Mark at gbnews.uk for the next 2 hours. Big debates, big guests and always big opinions. Let's start with this one. Another winter, another NHS crisis. Shocking scenes in hospitals around the country as scores of ambulances gather outside and patients await treatment on trolleys in corridors. The scenes have been described as Dickensian. But let me tell you, this isn't about that virus. COVID-19 simply served as a diagnostic tool, confirming everything we previously feared about the health service, that it's not working anymore. Things were hardly rosy in the garden pre-pandemic, with some of the worst outcomes in terms of cancer treatment in the Western world. And please don't give me any of that BS about money and underinvestment. The NHS currently costs every household £13,000 a year and has an annual budget of almost £200 billion. 13 grand a year per household. Sadly, they could go private for a fraction of that. And many are. People are using savings and even borrowing money and getting into debt to pay for what the NHS tells them is a non-urgent procedure. Soon I fear the NHS will become like the BBC, a service everyone has to pay for, but one only a fraction of people actually use. The NHS's demise has been a car crash in slow motion, and it's got nothing to do with the excellent staff within it. Our doctors, our nurses, hospital porters, cleaners, the security guards, they are the best of us. But bureaucratic pen-pushing middle managers on six-figure salaries and diversity officers for the most diverse employer in the world, not so much. Take a look at this from the Royal Free Hospital in North London. NHS bosses want interview panels to justify why they've hired a white person over candidates from ethnic minorities. Meanwhile, today we're told the NHS is seriously compromised by gender ideology, according to the government's outgoing czar on tackling violence against women. Nimco Ali said the health service appears to be seriously compromised by an ideology that is diminishing the rights of women and girls. The report quotes a February 2021 letter from North Bristol NHS Trust's then Chief Executive Evelyn Barker, suggesting that patients cannot always be guaranteed intimate care from someone of the same sex. In other words, a bloke calling himself a woman can handle, examine and treat a naked woman or girl in a hospital setting. That's progress, is it? And then there's the pandemic. A 2.5-year period in which the NHS, through, in my view, failed COVID policies, signed its own death warrant. Unlike other health systems in Western Europe, most notably Sweden, of course, the NHS became the National COVID Service, curtailing access to cancer diagnosis and treatment, for example, as well as other far more serious illnesses than COVID, like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. The legacy? Well, cancer affects all ages. So unlike COVID, you have, for example, a young mother that must now say goodbye to her children because she wasn't able to get that lump checked out during the pandemic. Meanwhile, Chief Medical Officer, the lockdown-loving Professor Chris Whitty, is he still a thing? Has warned of a surge in heart-related deaths due to a lack of treatment and medication over the last 3 years. Well, there's a surprise. This current self-inflicted NHS crisis, we're told today by the Chief of the Royal College of Emergency Medicine, Adrian Boyle, is claiming up to 500 lives a week, the kind of figure that would have created COVID hysteria back in the day, but now no one bats an eyelid. The excess deaths in this country are eye-watering and they will continue. But if it's not COVID, they don't care. That's why the establishment media and the politicians aren't even talking about it. The COVID overreaction is the greatest scandal in the history of the NHS. For a virus, nasty, yes, but non-fatal to most, focusing as it did on the very old and those with multiple comorbidities. And I'll take no lectures from high-profile media medics, NHS GPs and consultants on TV, with book deals and hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter, who are shrieking about the current situation. Well, I agree with them. It is a nightmare what's happening. And I'm deeply worried about patients and about what NHS staff are currently going through, with horrifically long hours and tough conditions. I'd start, by the way, by getting rid of those useless masks in a hospital setting. I was in an NHS hospital today.
The staff were incredible as usual, and they kept taking their masks off just to get their point over. COVID theatre at its very worst. But it's those same high-profile medics on TV and on the radio and on Twitter who are so concerned now. Well, they were the cheerleaders of lockdowns and the NHS's ridiculous focus on one disease. You can't have it both ways. During the pandemic, doctors were being pinged on their phone and made to stay at home for 2 weeks because they'd been near someone that had COVID. They didn't necessarily have COVID, they'd been pinged because they were near someone that had it. You work in a bloody hospital. What do you expect? Sensible doctors ignored the ping and went into work anyway, but thousands didn't. Crazy policies like doctors and nurses self-isolating without symptoms are why we are where we are right now. China this week offering the latest proof that this virus won't be stopped and never would, as they row back on their bonkers zero COVID policy. The NHS isn't just on life support. The last rites have been given and it's time to start again. The NHS staff are the best we have and they've been heroes. But in its current form, it's not working. On the watch of the NHS, we've got a waiting list of 7 million people. We've got ambulance drivers and nurses on strike. And we've got an even higher bill for a service that's getting worse by the day. The NHS isn't even about public health these days. In my view, it's just in the pocket of Big Pharma, as it seeks to prescribe medication rather than prevent serious illness through lifestyle changes. Obesity is the elephant in the room, and that's what's bankrupting Western health systems, especially our own. Given the fact that obesity is a gateway drug to cancer, dementia, type 2 diabetes, heart disease, kidney problems, joint damage and so much more, you'd think that would be the focus of their work, but it is not. It's my view that if you fix obesity, you fix the NHS, because almost any ailment you can think of is related in one way or another to our waistline. It was even being reported today that police officers are being measured up for XXL uniforms and are too overweight to catch criminals. It's a fair cop has been replaced by it's a fat cop. You're going down to Burger King or McDonald's. Now, I love the NHS and its people. I don't want an American system which costs twice as much and is twice as bad. I don't want to have to produce a credit card if I break my leg. But the NHS is now broken, and it's all of its own making. Asleep at the wheel as lifestyle-related illness exploded. Type 2 diabetes wasn't a thing 50 years ago. And it signed up to, in my view, failed and insane COVID policies, which one of the world's top medics, Professor Jay Bhattacharya from the University of Stanford in California, has called the biggest public health mistake in history. It's enough to make you sick. For the new year, I want a new NHS. It's time to amputate the whole thing and start again. Pass me the saw. I'll do it myself, without anaesthetic. It's just a coincidence that I'm dressed as a medic tonight. What's your view? Mark at gbnews.uk. I'll get to your opinions shortly, but reacting to that, our journalist and political commentator David Oldroyd-Bolt, TV personality and broadcaster Ingrid Tarrant, and top political commentator, journalist and playwright Emma Burnell. Emma, let me start with you. Do you think the NHS needs a rethink?
I think yes and no. The problem we have at the moment is quite a lot of it is to do with the big rethink that happened in 2012, where we atomised lots of parts of the NHS so they were really bad at talking to each other. It was a massively imposed change on the NHS from the top, met with lots of resistance. And we didn't, both sides of that argument got things very wrong. First of all, the impact wasn't immediate, so everyone went, oh, it's fine, what are you talking about? So then things went downhill gradually, and of course, they got run down and run down and run down, and then when we did hit a crisis point, the NHS wasn't up to it. There are important things that we need to do, and we do need to reform within the NHS, but that has to be done not as a something must be done, panic, change measure, but actually in partnership with those who work for it, those who use it, and those who need it. And I think we need to be really conscious of thinking what we need and how we get there in such a way that everybody can be happy both with the change and with the journey of change, rather than simply just throwing up our hands and saying everything is wrong or everything must go back to how it was or nothing can be done. I think that so much of the problems with these things is that we react rather than rethink.
Does it need a rethink, David Oldroyd-Bolt?
Yes, and it needs a rethink entirely from the ground up. The simple point about the NHS is that the model does not work for Britain in 2022. And the biggest problem of all with our national reaction to this is that we're unwilling to admit this. There is a nostalgia about the NHS, about its founding ethos, and about what it was to those people who first benefited from it. This is entirely understandable when you look at the standards of life in 1947. However, we have moved on greatly. We have expanded enormously as a country. The amount that we now need to pay just to keep the NHS rolling, never mind to pay for people's medical care and to give them the medical care that they so desperately need, and that they are, they're, as British citizens, it is their right to have, is not possible to be given under the current funding system. No other country in the world, no other sensible country in the world, thinks that you can pay entirely out of taxation for a health system. Now, there is a big problem here for the British people within their own minds and for the politicians who seek to represent them. Is this constant national debate about we need more grown-up politicians, we need a more sensible national debate, is particularly prevalent when Boris Johnson was Prime Minister and got through his premiership by soundbite politics. And, you know, this is followed on from Blair onwards, that people come up with soundbites instead of coming up with real policy. The question for the British people, and that they must put to their elected representatives, is are we willing to have, as a nation, a serious, sober debate about the NHS, about the fact that it does not work, and about the fact that because it does not work, people are dying. We need to look at other European nations, Germany, France, Switzerland, Belgium. All of these nations have part public, part private health systems. They all have better health outcomes than we do, and nobody is denied healthcare.
Well, I agree. If the NHS doesn't choose change, change will be chosen for it. Ingrid, apologies, the clock's against us. Is the NHS running out of time?
It's running out of time, but it doesn't have to collapse. But we need to sort out the middle management, because that's where the money is just hemorrhaging, and we need to look at the health aspect of it. And get that sort of sorted out.
Millions with preventable diseases, Ingrid.
Millions, exactly.
I mean, 4 million people have type 2 diabetes. Friends of mine, family members, it's incredibly prevalent. I'm not judging anybody, but type 2 diabetes is predominantly an illness that does not need to exist.
Exactly, and you said that it didn't exist 50 years ago. Look at all the allergies that we've got as well. You were in the NH hospital, you said today. I was in NH hospital a few days ago. We'll talk about it, because I know you say that we're running out of time, but we'll talk about it because I was alarmed. And I can see, even from that experience, where money could have been saved just that night, on me alone.
Well, there you go. I tell you what we'll do. We've got the papers at exactly 10:30, and already the NHS is making headlines. So we'll cover your experience, Ingrid, of the NHS just this week. And let me know your experience. What is your appraisal of the NHS post-pandemic? Mark at gbnews.uk. I was in an NHS hospital today. I got a great service. It was a chin lift and boosted the bum a little bit.
Oh, no, it's not a good service at all. Look at you.
I'll show you the results later in the show. Lots more to come. We'll be discussing the vaccination programme with MP Andrew Bridgen, who says we must think again. But next, we'll be asking, is university a waste of time? See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Well, a big reaction to my big opinion monologue. I believe that the NHS has reached the point of no return. I don't want an American system, but at the moment, patients are not being served and the staff are going through hell as well. This from Richard. Mark, major and bold reform is the only way to turn round the NHS oil tanker, not by throwing more cash into the endless and wasteful furnace. It's a bottomless pit of inefficiency. It has to change. I'm sick of it being beyond criticism, says Richard. John says, Mark, your focus on obesity is absolutely correct. You should know that the average doctor has had no more than 6 hours of training in obesity in their entire medical course. It's a total scandal. And I believe that approximately 75 billion of the cost of the NHS relates to obesity comorbidities. Well, if you want to lose a bit of weight, do stay tuned, because at 9:45 we're joined by legendary US doctor Ken Berry, live from Nashville, Tennessee, and he'll be talking weight loss and fitness, and I think he's got a great solution. So do stick around for that one. However, I've got to say, June's not happy. Mark, how dare you fat shame people? Absolutely disgusting. Well, look, June, I appreciate your point of view. No fat shaming from where I'm standing. I believe that we live in a toxic food environment. I think we're all eating the wrong food, and the whole country has to have a conversation about how we feed ourselves. I'd go back to farmers feeding us rather than supermarkets and big food companies. But June, I appreciate your comment, and I do hear what you're saying. Alistair, hi Mark, Happy New Year. The NHS needs radical surgery to remove the inept tick box managers. Their saved overweight salaries could be used to deploy more doctors, nurses and nursing support staff. Well, look, I'll get to more of your emails shortly. Always compelling stuff, mark@gbnews.uk. But middle-class teenagers are choosing apprenticeships over degrees because they want better value for money. This according to a top graduate employer. Chairman of an accounts and consultancy company, Kevin Ellis, has said a rising number of school leavers were opting for apprenticeships over traditional university education, fearing the high level of student debt. So it begs the question, is university a waste of time? To debate this, I'm delighted to welcome ethnographer and academic, a good friend of the show, Dr. Lisa Mackenzie. And also, I'm delighted to welcome author and columnist, TV and radio presenter, quite a talented lady, I'm not going to lie, Emma Wolfe. So we've got Lisa and Emma. We're just going to get the line to them now. It's an important debate because Tony Blair was very keen to see over 50% of school leavers attend university whilst he was Prime Minister. Was that a laudable policy, or did it set up a lot of people for a fall? Lisa Mackenzie, we've got the line to you. Happy New Year. What's your view on this? Of course, you're a top academic yourself.
Well, I am an academic, and Happy New Year, Mark, and Happy New Year to everybody on GB News. It's great to see you on the 2nd of January. So I've had a look at this sort of statement that was reported today, and where it's come from. It's come from a report that was done in December by the Sutton Trust, and it is absolutely sort of suggesting that some young people are looking for apprenticeships. However, it is a bit misleading with the headline, which says the middle class are looking for apprenticeships, because it's almost suggesting like the middle class are looking for apprenticeships as plumbers or electricians, when actually the apprenticeships that is on offer is actually something called higher degree apprenticeships, and that's things like in media organisations, in accountants and in legal firms. So there are these sort of higher degree type apprenticeships, and middle class students are absolutely looking towards those. However, what the Sutton Trust does say is that in these sort of very lucrative higher degree apprenticeships, which does get you into a higher paid job without all that debt, working class students are not getting through. So the same old argument is happening again and again. So is university a waste of money? Probably not for, I suppose, upper middle class people, because they're used to spending sort of £9,000 or 15 grand a term at a private school, and then they go to a university. And as I've said many times, what you get at university is much more than the education. It's the social networks, it's the cultural capital. So for some groups of people, university is still absolutely worth that money. However, leaving university with a 50 grand debt for a working class student that may not get all those networks and may only just get a marginally better job out of it. I think personally, working in a university for 20 years, the higher education system is completely broken.
Emma Wolfe, I believe that all young people should have access to higher education, but it doesn't have to be in a red brick building called a university.
Absolutely. And I completely agree with Lisa that basically these apprenticeships, it's not being the sort of the boy doing the chair legs in the carpenter's studio and then working his way up to master carpenter. It's not doing the plumbing or working in a factory. It's basically, these are what we used to call internships. These are paid training at a company with the offer of then a very lucrative or a pretty lucrative first job. So, but I agree with you, Mark, as well, that I think higher education, in whatever form it takes, whether that's you know, a sort of traditional academic degree like I did, or whether it's more vocational. Depends whether you have a specific career in mind, depends whether you want to be a medic, you want to work in the law, something like that, or you just want to faff around like I did and study English literature for 3 years and, you know, learn how to speak Old English and all sorts of things and end up in goodness knows what kind of profession. But I think higher education in some form, i.e. after school, that you leave home, that you get away from mummy's apron strings, you learn how to pay your rent, how to work a washing machine, how to cook a basic meal, how to get drunk, how to fall in love, how to have your heart broken, how to deal with life outside of school, the safe environment of school, that you have a space where you do that, hopefully with some kind of study in mind, and you do that for a couple of years before you knuckle down into the world of work. Because goodness knows, we're all going to be working until we're about 95 these days, probably with COVID and obesity and who knows what else in this miserable world. So, yeah, I think some form of higher education, whether that's mostly spent in the pub or, you know, wherever, is really, really important. But I'm not sure about these so-called apprenticeships.
You're right about having your heart broken at university. I'll never get over Rebecca, Stephanie and Big Jim.
I can join you. Jonathan.
Big Jim was a unit, let me tell you. Lisa, how much of this is about class? And were Tony Blair's attempts to get young people into university an attempt to tackle class division?
Yeah, I mean, the whole of the New Labour agenda was about social mobility. That was what the whole New Labour agenda was about. It was about, you know, Prescott said, you know, we're all middle class now. But And the attempt to sort of get 50% of young people into university was a social mobility attempt. However, that has not worked. It's actually failed because what has happened is with the enormous amount, you know, the minute that the working class in any numbers started to go to university, the fees started to go up. So what we've got now is we've got students leaving university with £50,000 worth of debt, which they have to pay back when they're only earning £21,000, which is not a graduate. That's not a graduate wage, £21,000. But you do have to start paying that back at £21,000. And so what we've got now is we've got a situation where we've got groups of people who can leave university and parents are paying off that debt for them. And then you've got other groups of people, usually working class people, who do not get that support. And at the same time as they're trying to find work, perhaps trying to buy a home, they're also having to pay off this enormous debt as well. The higher education system as it works today is actually not working for anybody. It's not working for lecturers. It's not working for students. It really needs a proper overhaul. Does that mean I'm with you? I think that an education is a precious thing. However, what starts to happen is if you start charging that 50 grand, students need to believe that they're going to get some sort of job at the end of it that's going to pay that off. So therefore, education then is not about education. It's about getting a job. And actually, you lose the education bit from the university because it then becomes you're buying a piece of paper to give to an employer rather than having that 3 years of education.
Emma Wolf, you've got a young son and he will, at a certain point, be a school leaver. What if he says to you, Mum, I'm not going to get myself into tens of thousands of pounds worth of debt? There are courses online. I can learn about engineering from YouTube and I can get to work quicker.
Well, he's already learned about engineering, but not from YouTube, and he's not allowed online, and he's never going to have a phone ever. He's never going to have a television. He's never going to be allowed any technology ever. Ha. No,
Poor kid.
I think the world has changed a lot. Degrees, the whole academic course thing, universities were invented decades ago. And the world is such a different place. They were invented before technology existed, before remote working, before virtual, any kind of technology, before the internet. I'm not talking about the universities, like Oxford and Cambridge, that were invented centuries ago. But the traditional course, the way it's only just been sort of tweaked at the edges and then modified and then changed through COVID and stuff. We've never actually, and I know you've just talked about reforming the NHS, so we can't throw universities as well into the mix. There's way too much in this country to reform. Everything needs reform. But I do think that the traditional 3-year course, residential course, is probably a busted flush. It probably isn't going to last, certainly not until Ludo is 18 or whatever. So the likelihood is that kids his age in 17 years' time will be doing it in a completely different way, and probably nothing like the university that we went to. I still remember the day when I got this envelope through the door. It was a letter from the student, what were they called? Student Loans Company. And it said, you've paid your final instalment. That was it. That was my final, and I was about 30. And I paid off my final, I think it was 100 quid a month. And it came out of the blue. And I'd just given up on ever paying it back. I just thought that will be forever. I'll always have that 90 odd pounds a month going out, because I had no help from my parents at all. Yeah. And one day, about 12 years later, I paid it off. It ended.
You do
In
realise,
your case,
though.
money well spent, Emma, although there are lots of books behind you. I won't speculate on how many of them you've actually read. The brilliant broadcaster Emma Wolf.
How many I've written, you mean?
She's read all of them. What an outrageous slur. Also, thanks to Dr. Lisa Mackenzie as well. I'm in so much trouble. What do you think? Is university a waste of money? Mark at gbnews.uk. I've just received an email from an old university friend called Big Jim, who wants me to meet him at the Holiday Inn in Swiss Cottage. Watch this space. Coming up, would you like to get slim, fit and lean for 2023? Very often that question is an empty promise, but take my word for it, Dr. Ken Berry, live from the United States. It's worth hearing. He has delivered for his patients. I'm a huge fan, so don't miss that interview. We've got the papers at 10:30, but up next, we've got Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen. Is the COVID-19 vaccine killing people? See you in 3.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons. I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
She's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236 and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Camilla Tominey. Join me on GB News on Sunday mornings for a politics show with personality on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very much looking forward to Camilla Tominey on Sunday mornings at 9:30 a.m. That is going to be Event TV. It's Mark Dolan in for Dan Wootton all of this week. Let's talk about public health, shall we? Given the huge cost of the COVID-19 vaccine rollout, with concerns about side effects and efficacy, is it time to offer boosters only to the most vulnerable groups? A policy that has been adopted in Denmark and Norway, for example. Or do we stop them altogether? Here's the Conservative MP, Andrew Bridgen, addressing a House of Commons committee just before Christmas on this very issue.
What we do know is that those people who've questioned the efficacy or safety of the vaccines have generally been cut down, cancelled, and that's why this is so important. I don't claim to be any sort of expert, but my degree a long time ago was in genetics, behaviour and biochemistry, and science works by challenge, and what we do know is that the science behind these vaccines has not been allowed to challenge.
Well, I'm delighted to say that the Conservative MP for North West Leicestershire, Andrew Bridgen, joins me now. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Mark.
Happy New Year, and I would have thought it would be a Happy New Year for you if we pause the vaccine rollout.
Yes, Mark, I think the evidence is huge and it's growing daily that there are considerable adverse events associated with those who've taken the vaccine. Some of them have sadly resulted in death. What we do know now is that these treatments are not normal vaccines in the traditional sense. They're actually gene therapies, as admitted by Pfizer and Moderna in filings to US lawsuits. They're novel treatments. We know they haven't gone through the normal testing you'd expect for a medical treatment. They were rushed out in 12 months. No one can tell you what is going to happen after 2, 5 or 10 years. So you would have expected that, given that they haven't been through all the rigorous testing we'd normally expect, that there would be a very rigorous and demanding scrutiny of all the side effects associated with the vaccine rollout. And what we've seen is a yellow card system which is monitored by the MHRA, and they themselves admit that's probably only representing possibly 10% of all the adverse events, and even that's running at nearly 500,000 reports since the vaccines were rolled out. So yes, I'm calling for the government to suspend the rollout of the vaccines. I'm calling for a detailed analysis of the adverse events. And also, if we want to use these novel treatments, we really should do a risk assessment based on benefit against harm for each age group of people. And of course, now that the MHRA have approved these experimental vaccines for use on children, and I'll say children, but they're actually babies down to 6 months, who are at no risk at all if they're healthy from the virus itself, I think this is a time to draw a line in the sand.
However, Andrew, we've heard figures that 3 million lives have been saved by the jab, and surely this has been the most tested vaccine in history, considering how many billions of people have had it, and they're absolutely fine.
Well, that science that says that they've saved all these lives, that's called modelling. Modelling is the lowest form of evidence, for scientific research. And a lot of that is more science fiction than science fact. What we do know by reanalyzing Pfizer's own research data that they used when they were developing this treatment is that at least 1 in 800 people who take that vaccine will have a severe adverse event. And we only know it's 1 in 800 because in 8 weeks, because Pfizer only followed those patients for 8 weeks after they took the vaccine. So any side effects that come out later than 8 weeks wouldn't have been picked up in that study. And that's one of the many holes in the research, that when you actually look at the big pharma's own data, this is not rigorous. It's not rigorous data at all. It has been exposed. A lot of people have taken the vaccines for various reasons. Some of them, unfortunately, were mandated to take the vaccines, and I think that's a very dodgy area of law given the harms that they're producing. But now it's time to actually look at this data around these experimental treatments.
Andrew, why are you a minority voice in the House of Commons? What do you know that the others don't?
Well, I'm hoping that colleagues have had time to digest information over the Christmas break. I'm hoping that when we come back in January, that colleagues will have looked at the data themselves. I think a lot of people have taken the experts' opinions without looking at the raw data themselves. There's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of sources for it. It's all backed up by science. The esteemed cardiologist, Aseem Malhotra, has been passing me an awful lot of information. Yeah, my degree a long time ago was in biological sciences. It's easier to read the papers if you have that background. But, common sense tells you that there's something not right about all of this. And the silence from the mainstream media only compounds that feeling that there's something not right about all this. And Mark, quite honestly, it reminds me exactly the same way for the first 5 years of my investigation into the sub-postmasters scandal over the Horizon system. For the first 5 years, I couldn't get a single newspaper or news outlet to cover that story. But ultimately, it was a huge scandal.
All the way from Washington and the United States, my thanks to the Conservative MP, Andrew Bridgen. Thank you, Andrew. Let me tell you that the MHRA are very clear that the vaccines used in the UK have met all of their highest standards for safety and effectiveness. And they say that the number of yellow card reports received so far is not beyond what was expected. Vaccine effectiveness has changed over the course of the pandemic, but they're still effective against hospitalisation and death. So say the top medical authorities in the land. But what's your view? Are you concerned about the vaccine? Are you delighted you had it? Let me know. I'm triple vaxxed, but I've got to say I was always against vaccine tyranny and vaccine mandates. Let me be clear that what Andrew Bridgen has said is his view and his alone. But what's yours? Mark at gbnews.uk. Next, would you like to lose some weight? A legendary doctor, the remarkable Dr. Ken Berry, live from Nashville, Tennessee. You won't want to miss that. It's an interview that might just change your life. See you in 3.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
My Take at 10 monologue is coming in just a few minutes' time, my New Year's resolutions for the country. But a new year beckons and thousands are joining gyms and starting diets. But what is the best way forward for a healthy and happy 2023? Let's head to the United States and the world-renowned medical physician Dr. Ken Berry, MD, a health practitioner in Nashville, Tennessee, a YouTube sensation with over 2 million subscribers, and the author of the best-selling book, Lies My Doctor Told Me, Medical Myths That Can Harm Your Health. Dr. Ken Berry, Happy New Year and welcome to GB News.
Thank you. Delighted to speak with you again.
Great to have you back on the programme. What do we need, Ken, to start eating to get lean in 2023? How do we lose weight?
So the key to losing weight is to eat fewer carbohydrates and definitely cut out all the simple carbohydrates immediately, today. And then for many people, they have to cut out even the more complex carbohydrates because in reality, many of the complex carbohydrates are just starches. They're long chains of sugar that are holding hands. And when you start to chew them up in your mouth, before you even swallow them, they break up into sugar. And when you eat the sugar, it raises your blood glucose level, which raises your insulin, which is a fat storage hormone. So to burn the fat that you've already stored on your body, you've got to lower your carbohydrate intake. That's going to lower your insulin level. That's going to make it possible for you to burn the stored fat.
I see. And these carbohydrates, as you say, are not just sugar, but starchy vegetables like potatoes, fruits like tropical fruit, bananas, grapes, mangoes, and of course, bread, rice, and pasta, and those sorts of foods.
Absolutely. And I think most of your viewers know that eating a diet of sugar buns and crisps and Coca-Cola, that's bad. You're going to get fat eating that. But the false choice for many people, they stop eating that junk and they say, okay, I'm going to start drinking lots of fruit juice and I'm going to start eating lots of whole grain bread and I'm going to start eating lots of fruits. That's just as bad. That's not going to help you with burning stored fat at all, which most people, when they say I want to lose weight, what they really mean is I want to lose fat. And the way to do that is to get your insulin level down. And the way to do that is to eat a very, very low carbohydrate diet, whether it's a ketogenic diet or a ketovore diet becoming very popular, or a carnivore diet also very, very popular.
Okay, so we're not eating the carbohydrates, and I know you're not a fan of the vegetable oils, those seed oils, sunflower oil, rapeseed oil, that kind of thing. I think you want us to eat butter and real fats.
Absolutely. Animal fats are the fats that human beings have been ingesting for millions of years. They have been proven safe by the evolutionary method. Nothing has been proven safer for human consumption than animal fats, butter, lard, bacon grease, sheep lard, any kind of animal fat. That is what the human body craves, what it needs. It's nutrient dense and it's good for you.
OK, and I guess a bit of extra virgin olive oil might hit the spot as well. So you've said what we can't eat, Ken. What can we eat? Give me a few foods that are on the menu on your watch.
So if you were to adopt a ketogenic diet, that would be a diet with half of your plate covered with some form of fatty meat. That would be chicken or duck with the skin on. That would be a steak with the fat still attached. That would be minced beef that was 70-30 protein to fat. And then you would add some very low carbohydrate vegetables like brassicas, something like that. You might season with some garlic or some onion. And then you might have a few nuts and a few berries for dessert. If you wanted to go as low carbohydrated as possible, that would be a carnivore diet. And so you would cover the entire plate with fatty red meat and eggs, always with the yolk.
Well, this is great to know. Ken, briefly, exercise, can that help? And if so, what kind?
So exercise is great for the human body in hundreds of ways. But the research is very clear that it's a terrible method for weight loss. And so all of your viewers who have joined the gym with a New Year's resolution to lose weight, they should probably call now. Hopefully they're still under the statute of limitations. They can cancel that account before their credit card is charged. Now, if they want to build muscle, then continue with the gym, lift the heavy weights. But the gym for a method of weight loss is a complete waste of money.
Brilliant stuff. Ken, let me alert my viewers to your various products. First of all, the book is out now, and you're allowed to have a title like this because you are a top physician yourself, but the book is called Lies My Doctor Told Me, which is busting many medical myths. And of course, you talk about your own amazing weight loss journey as a result of the advice you've just given me and my viewers. And what's the website, Ken, so people can find out more about what you do?
drberry.com. Very simple.
What a way to start the year. Dr. Ken, lovely to have you on the programme. Please return soon. I feel better just talking to you. Let me stress that if you're going to change your lifestyle or your diet, do consult your GP first. Lots more to come, including the papers. And next up, my take at 10. It's my resolutions for the next year. See you soon. I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB+ radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Mark Dolan in for Dan Wootton all of this week. A very happy new year to one and all. Prince Harry says he wants to make up with William. But can sibling relationships be repaired? Is blood thicker than water? Have you had trouble with a brother or a sister? We'll be asking TV legend Kim Woodburn, the voice of common sense, on this show. We'll also have tomorrow morning's front pages at exactly 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction. And despite 2023 being so young, we'll be getting the panel's greatest Britons and Union Jackasses of the year so far. My Take at 10 is on its way. It's my New Year's resolutions, and it's a lively one. I wonder how many that you'll be agreeing with. But first, the headlines with Rhiannon Jones.
Mark, thank you. Your top stories from the GB newsroom, and we start with some breaking news. The Foreign Office has confirmed 2 Brits are among the 4 people killed after 2 helicopters collided mid-air in the Australian state of Queensland. 3 others were critically injured in the collision that took place near the SeaWorld theme park at around 2 p.m. local time. Queensland Police says initial information suggests one of the helicopters had been taking off and the other had been landing when they collided. The first Channel migrants of the new year arrived at Dover Harbour today. GB News can reveal that dozens of young men were picked up from a small boat around 9 miles off the Kent coast. It's understood there were more than 40 people on board. It comes as UK and French authorities start patrolling beaches together for the first time in a bid to stop migrants from making the crossing. Health bosses are calling for the government to declare a major incident within the NHS over mounting pressure on the service. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine claims that as many as 500 people could be dying each week because of delays to critical care. The government says it recognises the pressure faced by the NHS. Lisa King told GB News her husband would have survived if he'd been treated in time.
500 people a week dying in NHS hospitals because they were denied the treatment and appointments that they needed. What my husband died from was very treatable. He did not need to die. He should never have died. And for every one of those 500 a week that are dying, there is a family behind them. There is a husband, a wife, a partner, a son, a daughter.
Thousands of rail passengers will face yet more travel disruption this week. Members of the RMT and 14 train operators will stage 2 48-hour walkouts from Tuesday and Friday as left drivers will strike on Thursday. It's in an ongoing dispute over pay and working conditions. More than 100 national highway workers in England will also stage a 48-hour strike from tomorrow. And thousands of mourners are paying their respects to Pelé at the grounds of his former club Santos. The Brazilian football legend died last Thursday. He was undergoing treatment for colon cancer. The 3-time World Cup winner was 82. The procession will continue through the streets of his hometown tomorrow, followed by a private family burial. TV, online and DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Mark Dolan.
Brilliant to be working with Rhiannon Jones, who returns in an hour's time. This is Dan Wootton tonight with me, Mark Dolan, all week sitting in for the big man. Prince Harry says he wants to make up with William. Good luck with that. But can sibling relationships be repaired? Is blood thicker than water? Have you had trouble with a brother or a sister? We'll be asking TV legend Kim Woodburn, the voice of common sense, on this show. We'll also have tomorrow morning's front pages at exactly 10:30 sharp. You can set your watch to it with full panel reaction. With me until 11 are historian, broadcaster and man about town David Oldroyd-Bolt, top political commentator, journalist and successful playwright Emma Burnell, and TV personality, writer and broadcaster Ingrid Tarrant. Now, I want to hear from you throughout the show, mark@gbnews.uk. So many emails to get through, and I'll come to those shortly. But we'll start with my take at 10. Happy New Year. Here are my New Year's resolutions. I'm going to drive my car, which has a petrol engine, on any street I like. I'm going to watch outrageous and sometimes maybe even offensive comedy, and I'll do the same with movies, TV shows, music and literature. I'm not going to wear a mask. I'm not going to be separated from my family or friends this year or prevented from working. I'm not going to say that a man is a woman is a man, or that the earth is flat. The only place I'm going to put my pronouns is where the sun doesn't shine. I'm going to use cash daily and resist the idea of a hellish, undemocratic world government. I'm going to travel on airplanes and take non-essential trips via various means of transport. And I'm going to love life and enjoy it because it's short. I'm not going to apologise for my country, for my masculinity, for my politics. I'm not going to apologise for my values or for the colour of my skin. I'm going to be caring where necessary and aggressive where necessary too. I'm going to be a man. I might even indulge in a bit of toxic masculinity. What do you think about that? After all, it served us well when we defeated Germany in 2 world wars. I'm going to love Britain. I'm going to be patriotic. And whilst reflecting on its many mistakes and crimes, I will celebrate it in equal, if not greater, measure as well. I'm going to call things out when they defy common sense, like gender ideology, which questions the very idea of biological sex, and most of the nonsense around COVID policies, which it's now abundantly clear were a catastrophic failure and a catastrophic disaster. I'm not going to be afraid or cowed into submission by a politically active and toxic minority on social media, policing every thought, every comment, rewriting history, creating intolerant, hate-filled echo chambers, damaging children, destroying art, and ending careers. I'm going to be right and I'm going to be wrong, but I'm going to do it my way, underpinned by the fundamental British principles of free speech, tolerance, the competition of ideas, and fair play. 2023 is when the totalitarian, quasi-communist land grab of our free society begins to end. I want the old normal back, when freedom, in all its forms, was a good thing. And this year, I'll be fighting for it. Peacefully, of course. Here's to a happy, healthy and prosperous 2023 to all us Brits. Let's come together as one community, one family, and make it one to remember. Happy New Year. Well, here's hoping. Now, reacting to that is my wonderful all-star panel. Historian and journalist David Oldroyd-Bolt, TV personality Ingrid Tarrant, and journalist, playwright and political consultant Emma Burnell. Ingrid, what are your New Year's resolutions?
Oh, ditto everything you've just said. It's absolutely brilliant. And thank goodness, Mark, that you are in a seat where you have a voice. People will listen to you. And you are wise. Honestly, I don't want to sound like an echo chamber, but I have to say I agree with everything that you say. Most importantly, it is the freedom of speech and not to be afraid to stand up and be counted and just speak what you believe in. You might be wrong, as you said, but you might also be right. And there are lots of people that will agree with you and lots of people that will disagree. But the point is to, to say what you think. Well, so going back to resolutions, I don't really make resolutions because I kind of try to do those little things during the year. You know, it's start on a Monday type of thing, so not necessarily sort of wait a whole year before I start on New Year's Day. But unfortunately, fortunately, I had this horrible, horrible cough about 3 weeks ago. In actual fact, I had to cancel coming on to your show, because I thought once I start coughing, I won't stop, and then I won't be able to say anything again. And it stopped me smoking, which was fantastic, because I really sort of, wanted to do that. And then, so that's the sort of thing that somebody would do, wouldn't they, for a New Year's resolution?
Yeah.
And, well, I started on New Year, because
so have you had a
fag? Cigarette?
Have you had a cigarette since?
Completely wrong, I know.
So you've had a little cheeky puff since, have you?
Yes, and sort of like, really, it was after midnight, sort of January the 1st, and really, I should have really, really thought about it. I thought, I've done, I haven't had one so far, but it was just kind of...
So you believe in New Year's resolutions every week, basically? You don't really buy into this January the 1st idea?
No, I don't. I slightly buy into starting on a Monday. It seems
quite like
good,
that.
Yeah, sort of the start of a week, not necessarily a new year. Do you want to hear star signs, by the way? Because it's going to be a good year generally because of the way the stars are aligned. The main ones, Saturn, Mars and Jupiter, I think they're the powerful ones.
This is good news. What is Saturn going to do about interest rates, do you think?
Oh, well, it's all here. Do you want me to read? What star sign are you?
Well, I tell you what. Do you think you could, like, in a very, very brief way... I mean, there are 12 star signs. Do you think
but
you
there's
could...
only us.
Could you do... But, like, all my viewers out there, I've got Virgos watching.
They'll just have
I've got Sagittarius...
OK, well, what star sign are you?
OK, let's... I mean, myself and Emma, we're both Pisces.
OK, quickly. I'll tell you, first of all, the ones... So it's Saturn, the planet of discipline, Pluto, transformation, and Mars, planet of power. They all move into new signs. That's why it's going to be a good year, 2023, for the whole world.
Oh, that's good.
Yes, so Pisces, as January begins, Jupiter and Venus combine to strengthen your beliefs about what matters most. And when Mars turns direct in the second week of the year, you'll feel ready to pursue what makes you happy and secure. But it's the march of destiny. That's when they all move, the Saturns, the planets, and the move of Saturn, the cosmic teacher, into your sign in early March, followed by the move of Pluto, Mars into new house that brings the tools you need to make the most of what life has to offer. You'll also gain stability and determination to benefit from ideas you never dreamed would be taken seriously. You can turn inspiration into reality.
I tell you what, Mystic Meg, eat your heart out.
That wasn't Mystic Meg, actually.
We give you Ingrid Tarrant. Well, look, Ingrid, I tell you what, I think we're going to do regular star signs, OK? And you're going to be...
That would be good.
You are going to be the sort of the Jonathan Caner, if you like, of GB News, because you've clearly shown your prowess there.
I've lifted everything Jonathan Caner wrote. Actually, it's Oscar Caner. It's his son.
It's his son. Keep it in the family. Look, we might do that in the future. You've inspired me.
OK.
But let's go back, shall we, Emma Burnell, to this year. Have you got plans for this year? And do you think this year will be a better year for everyone?
Will it be a better... Yeah, it won't be a better year for everybody. It's going to be a tough year. I think a lot of the things that were stored up and were rumbling forward at the end of last year are just going to carry on this year. There doesn't seem to be an awful lot of end in sight. I do think that it will be a steadier year. We won't get the shocks, but that probably isn't great because we're already at rock bottom, so we'll just keep there steadily, which isn't the ideal news.
But do you not think, Emma, we'll make a conscious decision to make it a better year? Because we've had such a horrible last few years.
I think we can individually do some things, but there are lots of people who won't be able to make those decisions. I'm thinking of people, for example, in war zones, in Ukraine, or those people who just are at rock bottom, having a very, very hard time of it. And I don't want to judge them for not turning that around when it's almost impossible. When you're living day to day, hand to mouth, the idea that a decision you make on January the 1st is going to turn it all around for you can be really, really hard.
Emma, you are right. I totally agree with you. We must not gloss over the reality for millions of Brits and, as you said, people around the world as well. But do you not hang on to a couple of crumbs of comfort, which is that, by all accounts, We appear to be through the worst of the pandemic. Inflation looks to have peaked. That should come down. That's the cost of living. Unemployment's pretty low. Surely it can't be as bad as last year, is what many people are thinking.
As I said, I don't think it's going to be as shocking as last year. I don't think it's going to be as turbulent as last year, but I don't think it's all going to suddenly be bread and roses. I think it's going to be a fairly low and hard grind for a lot of people. But what we won't get, I do seriously hope, is that kind of shock moments that we had so often in politics, in world affairs. Last year just seemed to... It just didn't stop. And I think this year will be a quieter year, but it won't necessarily be an easy one for many people.
Yes, you wouldn't expect me to say this, but I think, David Oldroyd-Bolt, we had too much news last year.
Far too much news, too much even for us to keep up with. One of the things I'd like to see in 2023 is a return to an old-fashioned British attitude. Instead of telling people what to think and not caring how they behave, how about we turn that on its head and accept that everybody has freedom of conscience. They can think what they want, but actually public behaviour, courtesy towards other people, is what matters. There is so much discourtesy among, I think, Britons now, and I think this comes about because everybody's had a pretty hard time for a number of years, but I'm fed up of getting on a bus or a train and people's with their feet on the seats and nobody saying anything because they're afraid. I'm fed up with slovenly attitudes of dress. I'm fed up with people going around as though all that matters is how they feel that they should behave. And yet they're perfectly willing to have people tell them what to think. I think that's a totally arse-about-tit way, frankly, of going about life. And we ought instead to have this idea that what you believe in your conscience, what you believe in your soul, is entirely your view, and you should defend that and you should think about it carefully. But how we behave towards each other is one of the fundamentals of a civilised society. It's something that I think we've drifted away from over the recent years, and I think it's something that we should all try collectively as a society to bring back. This idea of good standards in public life, of public decency and of courtesy.
I don't mind a bit of arse about tit. Don't knock it till you've tried it. Coming up, we've got the papers at 10:30 sharp with full panel reaction, and our panel will choose their greatest Britain and Union jackass. But next, apparently Prince Harry wants to reunite with William, but how do those sibling relationships work? Is blood thicker than water? Can you make up with your brother or sister after a traumatic moment of drama? We'll speak to the voice of common sense on this show, TV legend Kim Woodburn. Don't forget, we've got the papers at 10:30 as well, and there are some extraordinary headlines on their way. See you shortly.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate. with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
A big reaction to the conversation on email, mark@gbnews.uk. This from Phil in response to my big opinion monologue about the NHS. Hi, Mark, I agreed with your monologue until you suggested that we should be preached at about our lifestyles. Government is already exercising too much control over the public. They should leave us alone. Phil, thank you for that. How about this in relation to the NHS? And it's pretty spicy from John. John says, hi, Mark, I'm afraid even common sense commentators like you and your GB News colleagues perpetuate the myth that all frontline NHS staff are caring, competent angels. Possibly most are, but my own experience and observation of the treatment of close family and friends tells me that too many of them are not. Recognition of that is a vital precondition for any rational debate on reforming the service. John, thank you for that. Hi, Mark says, I haven't got a name here, but it's ACA, who says, hi, Mark, I was seriously damaged by the AstraZeneca vaccine. The damage is not just down to the mRNA. Brilliant programme, thank you. Helen, Mark, I'm uneasy about this vaccination. I was very reluctant to have it, but felt coerced because I was told I couldn't see my children or travel without it. I refused to have the booster and now live in fear of repercussions from the 2 jabs I've had. But Mick disagrees. Mick says, hi, Mark. Andrew Bridgen represents all that's wrong with the Tory party on GB News tonight, doing what he does best, acting against his own government as a lone wolf, a party within a party. He seems more content in promoting himself and his causes rather than the government's. Trying to pause vaccinations is a futile and pointless cause with little or no backing from scientists. Thank you, Mick. Keep those opinions coming. mark@gbnews.uk. Prince Harry's opinion is that he would like to get his father back and he'd love to have his brother back as well. This in a trailer for an interview ahead of the release of his autobiography. Prince Harry's book, Spare, which is anticipated to give details about disagreements with his brother, Prince William, will be released on the 10th of January. But here's the question. Is blood thicker than water? How do you resolve sibling tensions? Can they be resolved if there's been a big drama like that between William and Harry? I want to talk about this generally. Let me know if you've had problems with a brother or sister, and did you work it out? mark@gbnews.uk. Joining us to discuss this is TV personality Kim Woodburn. Hi, Kim.
Good evening. How are you, you look as gorgeous as ever, dear.
Oh, listen, you spoil me. I'm loving your pearl necklace. I'm wondering if I gave it to you.
Well, look, dear, you are a married man, a married woman. Please, we know we exchanged this when we were having passionate sex, but shut up, say nothing. You dropped me right in it now.
My lips are sealed. Now, gorgeous Kim, Happy New Year. You look amazing. It's great to see you. I hope you had a great Christmas.
Everybody had a super Christmas, Milo, I hope so. You know, we're discussing the boys, William and Harry. And I'm going to tell you this. I wish they could be the William and Harry we knew. But alas, it's not going to happen, my love. And we think it's because of the dislike of Meghan or Meghan didn't get on. We don't quite know what happened. But I'm going to say something to you now. You know, this is my opinion and my opinion only. If I'm wrong, I believe that our Charles III has a lot to do with this. You know, we've let that man off the hook. And I will tell you something. As long as Prince William, bless him, is so royal and wants to be our king, and Harry says to himself, how can you stand on that balcony with my father, Charles III, and Queen Consort Camilla, when she wouldn't be dead, our mother, if it wasn't for those two people? And I think that's at the root of all this. I think that William is a royal, and he says, I'm going to be a king, and I'm going to do it. But I think what hurts Harry is, William, how can you do this when you know if it wasn't for those two people, our mother would be alive and standing beside my father on the balcony? And I think that's a big thing between them. So I think why William's willing to be, and he is, bless him, he's willing to be the absolutely an earnest royal, William and his lovely wife. He's siding with the father. He's allowing things to go on as normal when they're far from normal. Look, my love, I'm going to say something to you. If it wasn't for Charles III, who's got his own way at last, he's going to be the king. He's going to make the woman that was his mistress, Queen Camilla. And Harry knows that that is wrong. And I know it's wrong. And we all know it's wrong. And yet we put up with it. And William, bless him, if he's a true royal, he says, I'm going to be a king. I have got to have the stiff upper lip. Yes, I know he has. But how can he? How can that young man stand beside that mistress on the balcony? And Charles, how can he stand with them knowing if he hadn't had her as his mistress, Diana would be with them today and would be the Queen of England? And I think that's a massive bone of contention with Harry towards his brother William. Because I'm going to tell you something. I personally could not stand on the balcony beside that woman who, and my father, who was responsible for my mother being dead. And she would have been with her husband that night. She wouldn't be dead now. And I suggest all the people, when she died in 1997, the 31st of August, it was a terrible thing. The country was broken. What is wrong with you, British people, that you allow this to happen? You allow that woman to stand there, Queen Camilla. You are, all of you, a disgrace. I'm not two-faced. They saw each other from the time he was marrying Diana. He was sleeping with Camilla Parker Bowles. He's continued sleeping with her. He once told Diana, every Prince of Wales has a mistress, and we're going to make him King Charles. And I will tell you something else. He belonged to the Church of England. No Church of England has ever crowned a king who has been divorced. It is not allowed in the Church of England. So why is that man going to be our king? And I think the bone of contention with poor Harry is, all right, we know we've got Meghan, we know all right, we'll go for all that. She's not the most popular girl. But I honestly think that Harry is disgusted with William, that he can stand beside Camilla, help her through the door, sit beside her, have a smile. And Charles and Camilla killed his mother. And perhaps William, who I'm not, where are his loyalties? This was his mum. This was his mum.
There you go.
I'm sorry, it's the way I feel.
I know you feel passionately, and Kim, let me tell you, no one is going to be censored on my watch. And I know that you speak figuratively because you're saying that the circumstances that led to Diana's tragic death were myriad, and one of those things was the affair. There were 3 of us in that relationship. That's what Diana told Panorama. And I hear what you're saying. You're entitled to your view. Kim Woodburn dropping lots of truth bombs. Kim, will you come back and do it again soon?
I will. And look, my love, I would love nothing better than to have, when I was a kiddie, a royal family you looked up to. You really did, Julie. Well, they don't do any wrong. Unfortunately, you know what's happened? The media's brought it to light. Even in this series, The Crown, my love, I don't want to hear this. It puts me, they're mentioning Charles and the tampon. Now, I'm not going into, we all heard that gross phone call he was making when he was, come along. I think the royal family will never be what it was again. I think we're fooling ourselves. I think the media has brought out they're as human as you and I. They have affairs, they curse, they swear. They say the most gross things, as we know Charles does. And so the image of the royals to me, when I look at Prince Charles, I think, and he's puffing and puffing and blowing and, he's terribly grand, isn't he? Well, Charles I was terribly grand, dear, and he was beheaded. So be careful,
do you know something?
Charles.
Kim Woodburn.
He was very grand. That's one of the reasons he was beheaded. Be careful, Charles. But I just feel that we've got to stop. Everyone's to blame but Prince Charles. And Prince Charles is 100% to blame for all that's happening between us and those boys.
I tell you something.
Then he gets off scot-free.
Okay. Look,
going.
a fascinating conversation. And Kim there throwing shade on King Charles. What do you think? Mark at gbnews.uk. Happy New Year, Kim. I tell you what, I don't know what they put in your tea, but I want some. Catch up soon. What a legend she is. What a character.
You know what you put in my tea in our private moment. Stop your nonsense. But don't tell the wife, for God's sake.
My lips are sealed. The fabulous Kim Woodburn will speak soon. Next up, we've got the papers with some very spicy headlines. See you shortly.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
As a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236 and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the show. It's Mark Dolan in for Dan Wootton all of this week. And we've got the papers now with full panel reaction. And let's start with the Financial Times. And here's what they lead with. It's not good news for the economy. UK recession will be the deepest and longest, say economists. Weakest recovery among G7 forecast. Public policy mistakes compound the downturn. Meanwhile, Kremlin admits Ukraine missile strike on barracks killed 63 Russian soldiers. OK, next up, let's have a look at The Eye. And The Eye newspaper lead with NHS faces 3 months of turmoil. The NHS was the topic of my monologue, which you can now catch up with online. Connor from our digital team has crafted that into a digital video at GB News. Extreme pressure on Britain's hospitals is likely to continue until April, with further critical incidents expected and basic patient care routinely compromised. Oxygen shortages, 2-day waits for beds and 12,000 medically fit people stuck in hospitals. Crumbs. Look, that reads like a litany of horror. We'll get some more thoughts from a panel on that shortly. The Independent. Really sad news about a sporting icon, Martina Navratilova, tennis star, diagnosed with 2 cancers, both throat and breast cancer. She vows to fight on and to overcome that awful set of diseases. Revealed China arrivals can opt out of COVID tests. Passengers from China who travel to the UK next week will not face compulsory COVID tests on arrival. Testing will be voluntary and those who test positive will neither be quarantined or asked to self-isolate. Brilliant. More COVID madness. Welcome to hell. The Times now. Ski holiday hopes going downhill as alpine snow melts away. Alpine ski resorts are closing after unseasonably warm weather turned snow to slush, threatening the prospects of holidays for hundreds of thousands of Brits. Low-altitude resorts in France and western Switzerland are the worst affected after torrential rain and mild temperatures obliterated the snow. Also, Harry, I'd like to have my brother back. He said that in an interview promoting his book Spare. He spoke to Tom Bradby of ITN. Millions will shun trains forever as the latest strikes bring the worst disruption for 3 decades. Unions are told a generation will turn against rail travel. The Guardian next. Intolerable NHS crisis will last until Easter. That story there covered by the Eye newspaper as well. And Moscow admits big losses after missile hit. And let's have a look at the Daily Star. Climate change crisis barking mad. Councils spend millions on new trees and thousands die. Critics' fury over bad job amid extreme weather. Thousands of new trees are dying because of shoddy council planting, according to the experts. They blasted town hall chiefs for poor efforts to save the planet whilst wasting millions. And those are your front pages. We'll have a look at the Telegraph in a second. It's got a couple of big, juicy stories as well. But bad news, folks, for the economy. David, UK recession will be deepest and longest, say economists. I wonder whether we should have cut taxes in order to boost growth.
We should. And the big problem with the Liz Truss government was that they totally ruined the chance of this happening anytime soon through their totally cack-handed presentation of it and by the idea that they were going to fund taxes through borrowing, which is ludicrous. When you have government expenditure at one of the highest rates ever, when you have a deficit of the size we have, when never mind a public debt at the size it is, the idea that then you borrow to fund tax cuts is silly. But I think that this comes back to what we have said now for, 2.5 years. What we did during COVID is going to have repercussions that last for generations. the amount of money that we simply gave away to keep people at home who should have been working, the amount of government spending that went on taking money out of taxpayers' pockets when there should have been different responses so that people did not end up with massive tax bills years down the line, so that essential government services weren't harmed. Well, now we're reaping what we're shown. All of us who at the time were told that we were being irresponsible, that we were playing with people's lives, that we wanted people to die, that we were gambling with safety. Well, what we were pointing out was that, no, all these things have costs too. You cannot simply put the nation at home for the best part of a year and expect that it won't have any impact whatsoever. You're seeing it now. So I would like to ask all those in government and opposition who failed to think about this at the time to think about it now and explain to their electors why they were so weak at the time, why they did not think of the consequences of what they were propounding, and why we are now being asked to suffer for it.
Do you share David's analysis?
No. You'll be shocked to hear. No, there are... The story is not... yes, COVID's had an impact on our economy. Of course it has. There was always an understanding that it would. We made choices, and that's what government is. Government is never having exactly the right thing to do. It's about making choices. We can argue, we will go into a long examination and inquiry as to how those choices were made, whether the right choices were made. We will look at that with a certain amount of hindsight, a certain amount of knowledge that we should have had at the time. But the story is that we have the weakest economy. All of those G7 countries had COVID measures. We are the ones that weren't set up, weren't robust enough to be able to come out of it in the same way that the other countries are. And that's not COVID, that's 10 years of absolutely running down our economy.
Is it longer than 10 years?
It's more than that. It's 25 years of building up enormous budget deficits, of having high taxation, of having a low-growth economy and not caring about it because apparently there's this magic money tree where we could keep taking 10 quid out of the national cash machine every time somebody squealed on social media about cuts. I agree the Tory government's culpable, but so is the 13 years of Labour government before it. We went into this in an appalling shape, and of course we're going to come out of it in an appalling shape, probably worse than the rest of Europe. But it's not simply a Conservative problem, it's a problem for the whole country to face that we cannot afford levels of public service that people
have we
demand.
been living beyond our means for decades?
We've been living in the wrong systems for decades, certainly. We don't have good productivity in this country. David and I will fundamentally disagree about how to change that, and I would like to see a much more diverse economy, an economy that's much less centralised. It isn't run from Whitehall. I would like to see much more investment in the UK's infrastructure, and that does mean spending, but it's spending to invest rather than spending to cover day-to-day costs. Day-to-day costs can be brought down if you spend to invest. We can bring in more tax money without having to raise tax levels if we have better investment. It's about making...
You won't get the investments at the rate that it is now.
It's about making sensible choices and setting up different systems. And you can't keep saying we won't get, unless we actually try something new. But what we can't do, and David's quite right, Liz Truss has stopped anyone being able to do any kind of big bang reset because it was bonkers and provably so. So what we're going to see, I think, is a quite gradual change into different types of system, putting sensible investment into the UK infrastructure. It's our infrastructure that is our biggest problem. We had a headline about the idea that the strikes are what is keeping people off the railways. The railways are keeping people off the railways. I don't think people notice if there's a strike because Aviva never run any bloody trains anyway. So there are much bigger, deeper problems that are not just about our individual politicians and the politics we have now, but the systems we've had for about 40 years where we completely need a complete reset and a real examination of how to do public investment
Now,
better.
am I right to think you'd like to see a Labour government?
100%, yeah, absolutely.
Right. Now, I've always said on this platform that, you know, in times of plenty, Labour governments have done good things, including under New Labour, massive investment in public services, bringing many parts of the public sector, you know, up to date and up to speed. Wages, also, you know, just like renovating schools, investing in the NHS, all of the above. But what's the point in a Labour government in 2 years' time if the cupboard's bare when there's no money? Because you talked about investment. Now, I hear what you're saying. It's a valid point. You can't do that through raising taxes any higher, I wouldn't have thought. and the international bond markets have gone right off lending us money. So how's it done?
Well, I think there are choices again. Government is about choices. I don't think a Labour government...
The only option I can think of is a Labour government comes in and cuts massively. That would free
No,
up some money.
I don't think it's about reshaping economies. So, again, I think there are things you can do that don't cost money, which do improve productivity. So a lot of that is about dispersing power as much as it's about dispersing money. So actually having much more local decision-making where people can build their local economies that then comes back to help us all. Understanding that we need to have better decision-making, therefore empowering local politicians and therefore getting a better calibre of local politician because it's worth doing. Having local government, mayors, devolved government...
Local investment banks?
Local investment banks, absolutely. All of these things, these are not additional costs. They are better spent money.
All right, interesting. So it's just sort of redistributing that cake. What do you think about this, Ingrid? Is Britain broke? I mean, will we bounce back in 2023? Because I just wonder whether the hue of this headline in the Financial Times is too negative. I'm not buying it.
I don't think we'll bounce back in 2023. I think it'll take years and years and years. But we've got to do help it along by making radical changes. And I absolutely think the biggest mistake would be to put the taxes up. That happened before. This was after World War II. That if you put up taxes, you go from recession to depression, and that's where we would be headed. We're in a recession. It can only get worse if that's what we're going to do. As Emma was saying, it's sort of like investments and everything. We need those foreign investments, so we need to be attractive to outside investors, even within the country. To get things going, we need to get mobilised again. Everything's become a little bit to a grinding halt. There's new enterprise. There are a lot of people, during the lockdown, there were a lot of people that either lost their jobs or they were furloughed, which was a big, big, big mistake as well, because people cheated the system as well, and they didn't check on it, and they've been cheated out of billions. So they can't even get that right. So they're not going to get a lot of these sort of things right. But there are a lot of people who are very enterprising during lockdown, doing extraordinary things.
From their kitchen table?
From their kitchen table and then on using Zoom, using the power of that, which opened up a whole new world and actually has changed the way that we live and work these days in any case. So these people are the ones that there's so many other people out there like that, where you can put money into, you can invest money into new enterprises and so on and so forth. So to me, to put it reducing, but it's quite right, Liz Truss got it completely wrong with Kwarteng. They went in far too fast. They didn't see it through. They couldn't explain how they were going to fund this. But the Labour Party, by sort of saying they're going to do all these things, they've got these wonderful things, rose-tinted glasses, but they never explain where it comes from, and that is where the problem lies, because they can't afford to do the things that they promise.
Some very spicy headlines coming up, including the Daily Telegraph next. Also, with stay-at-home orders, are we a nation of hypochondriacs? Don't you remember? In previous winters, you'd drag yourself into work, half dead, coughing and wheezing. In my opinion, those were the good old days, but what's your view? We'll discuss that. Plus, our panellists will nominate their greatest Britain and Union jackass. See you shortly.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us. We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory.
twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Mark Dolan in for Dan Wootton all of this week. We've got tomorrow's papers, and this is the Telegraph. Take a look at this. Prince Harry, I want my father and brother back. And also, wear a mask if you're unwell. The public have been advised and urged to wear masks if they feel unwell. A new advice to stop the spread of flu. So there you go, a couple of headlines there. And it ties in with a wider story that we wanted to discuss tonight, which is widespread stay-at-home orders. People with colds and the flu and COVID have been urged by employers to stay home and not spread the disease. But we didn't do that 3 years ago. So have we become a nation of hypochondriacs, or is this good common sense? Ingrid?
It's absolute. It's not common sense at all. The best thing you can do, if you're really, really dragging your, and crawling into work, then obviously you're not going to do it. But this is a get-out clause. It's so easy for people to say, oh, I'm really not feeling well, I'm not going to do it. Freelance people are very rarely ill. Employed people are so much more often ill or claim to be ill and not be able to function. It's good to spread a little bit of disease. It's good to build up the antibodies. But obviously, if you are feeling... I had to cry off, and I'm freelance, because I had that awful, awful cough, but it was not because I wasn't feeling bad, but I couldn't talk. But I crawl. I will go on my hands and knees. I can't remember the day I took a day
Family
off.
show, Ingrid.
What's that?
Nothing.
Oh, OK. But no, we are hypochondriacs.
Yeah.
We, all the time, we are encouraged to take advantage of being ill. You can stay at home. I phoned 111, and one of the things on the menu is that you can phone and get a note, a sick note, rather than going to your GP. I think maybe because it's the bank holiday. I don't know, because I've never phoned 111 before. People will abuse that. Of course they will. Oh, I'm not well, and it's said in the paper that I've got to do it. You know, it's all... I can't stand it. Honestly, Mark, I can't stand it.
I mean, Emma, we've got 3 million years of human evolution, and it's only 2.5 years ago that everything changed. And now if you've got a sniffle, you're like public enemy number one.
If you're sat at the desk next to me and you're hacking away, you are being deeply rude and unfair to me. I don't want your bloody germs all over my desk and all over me.
Yeah, but
be sensible. Don't be a dick.
Emma.
That's the ultimate public health rule. Don't be a dick.
That rule.
But this isn't people coming on because they want to. This is people coming on into work when they're ill because they feel that they have to do in order to keep their jobs. There's this nasty little American idea of presenteeism, which was not a thing in workplaces. If you read, going back into British history, if you read the diaries of the 19th century, early 20th century, go back 18th, 17th, people went to bed when they were ill. Yeah. There was a basic idea that it was a public courtesy.
Isn't it?
If it's being used in the modern age for people to hack off, well, that's for their employers to deal with. But I would have thought that with all the possibilities of remote working, someone taking 2 or 3 days off because they've got a cold, and therefore not spreading it to the rest of the office, meaning that you've got
But what's the problem with a cold? It's OK to spread colds.
Well, it is, yes, but up to the point that if you're running a small business and, you know, you've got, say, 20 people and 15 of them are off ill at the same time because one person came in with a really bad flu.
This sounds like zero COVID all over again.
It's not. It's just a basic idea that if you're running a small business, it's quite difficult having people off at once.
Don't be a dick.
Listen,
don't be a dick.
No, you're making
That's not clinical.
Emma, you're being so naughty tonight, but we love it.
I'm not the one talking about pearl necklaces, mate.
That's a good point, by the way. I hope they edited that out. Wear a mask if you're feeling unwell. Surely that's too much, though. Emma, you can't sign up for that.
I mean, wear a mask if you choose to. I personally, I don't wear a mask on the tube anymore, but I know people who are clinically vulnerable who do. It is... I would say if you are being or feel like you're being forced into work, then there might be things that steps that you would take that you wouldn't normally.
The problem is that they don't work. If they worked, great. But unless you're wearing one with the
If you're wearing a
super
mask,
filter.
you're not clinically vulnerable. You're intellectually vulnerable. Listen, I'm only kidding.
Less
but,
more.
I'm a libertarian. If you want to wear a mask, knock yourself out. But please don't ever make me wear one ever again. All my kids, all my friends, all my family. We've now got a very exciting part of the show. It's heroes and villains of the day, Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. So who's caught your eye? David Oldroyd Bolt. Bear with me, we've got a fancy sting there. Look at that, look at the money, look at the budget on this show. Isn't Dan Wootton a lucky man?
It'll come to you next.
Devil, I'm looking forward to it. Yes, your Greatest Britain, someone you liked.
My Greatest Britain is Fergal Sharkey. Now, everybody there thinking, why are you choosing the singer of John Peel's favourite song? It's because he has, over the past 4 years, done the most amazing thing. He has built up a campaign to clean up Britain's chalk streams, which are described as our Amazon River. There are 160 out of the 210 chalk streams in the world are in this country. They've been allowed by the Environment Agency to be despoiled to a scandalous degree. Fergal, over the past 4 years, has fought really a one-man campaign of such success that it's now being taken seriously, not only at governmental level, but at the level of the Environment Agency.
Absolute legend.
Brilliant.
Twice over. Emma, the clock's against us. Who's your Greatest Britain?
I just want David's now because that was fantastic.
Was amazing.
I agree.
And I love Fergal Sharkey and A Good Heart, wonderful song. Very quickly, I want to say that I love Scarborough Council taking all that care over the walrus on their beach. It just makes me feel so warm and snuggly, and it was my mum who came up with that one for me. So my mum and Scarborough Council.
What's your mum called?
Jan.
Right, well, I'm not allowed to have a Greatest Britain, but Jan Revel is my Greatest Britain tonight. God bless you, Mum. Right. How about you, Ingrid, your Greatest
Very
Britain?
quickly, and this is absolute coincidence, Andrew Bridgeton. I think he's fantastic. I love the way that he's spoken up, and he's...
My guest earlier, he wants to pause the vaccine rollout.
Complete coincidence. I didn't know who was going to be on. And just a very quick one, in case I don't have a chance to say it later. Jim, my friend's brother-in-law, because he has been absolutely amazing. He's a doctor, and he's been doing FaceTiming with me over the holidays.
Isn't that wonderful? How long have we got, folks? Can you, in 5 seconds, give me your Union Jackass?
Mick Lynch. It doesn't need any explanation.
Emma Revel.
Steve Barclay, what a dick.
OK, Health Secretary. And Ingrid?
Oh, Jeremy Hunt, sorry.
All right.
It's all health.
The Chancellor, the Health Secretary, they've all got it in the neck. Well, you've all been my Greatest Britons tonight, thanks to my brilliant panel, my amazing guests, and most importantly, to you for your company. I'm here all week. I'll see you tomorrow at 9. Headliners is next.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you know, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons? I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236. And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Rhiannon Jones in the GB newsroom. The Foreign Office has